name is Willhelm Hertle. I am a retired pastor and the son of the missionary couple Willhelm Hertle and Hedwig Hertle. My father was the first Lutheran missionary to enter the Wiru area, and I am here to tell you the story. This is the fourth of 15 parts of YouTube series on the beginning of the Tiripini circuit. This part is called The Race.
Before I start with the story of the race, I need to say a word on ecumenism. We now live in a time where Protestants and Catholics realize that there is more that connects them than separates them. Many congregations worldwide join hands in a spirit of ecumenism, walking side by side.
However, this was not the case 60 years ago. All documents reveal that there was a hard competition between the different denominations. Everyone wanted to be the first, because the Wiru said, who comes first gets served first. But no one expected this race to end up with such a surprising outcome. And this is how it happened.
On Wednesday, the 26th of October 1960, the District Commissioner of Yalibu, Mr. Fowler, told my father the permits for the entry into the new area had arrived. In 3 days he would hand them over to him. So my father thought that would be Saturday. But nothing happened on Saturday. On Sunday, my parents went for a stroll and called in at the office and asked the officer again. He said, I will send you the permits tomorrow. But on Monday, nothing came. In the afternoon, my father sent carriers who were mainly students from the village of Tindua to take his equipment to the border. Just then, the station evangelist Korowa burst in with the alarming news the Catholics had erected a cross at the border to Wiru and convinced the people to join their confession. Reverend Weaver immediately stepped onto the motorcycle, took a faithful evangelist from the station in order to place him there, because the people had previously agreed to join our mission. As it turned out later, Reverend Weber was able to straighten things out.
On Tuesday, the 1st of November, my father was waiting for the permit when the evangelist burst in and said the Catholics are already on their way to Wiru. Then you should have seen my father's speed. At first, he cycled to the headquarters of the Yalibu, and then he got his permits. Then he wrote a formal letter to the commissioner asking him about the delay of his permit. Then he stepped onto his bike, which had a breakdown the day before, and cycled as fast as he could. On the way, he met Reverend Weber, who was driving on a motorcycle. Reverend Weber gave him a lift and the evangelist and took him as far as he could and dropped them off.
Then he saw them tearing through the bush. Obviously, my father was trying to take a shortcut. He saw both of them were steaming sweat like steam engines. The police boys said, at first my father took the wrong track, but instead of turning back, he jumped over fences, walked through gardens, through kunai grass and swamp, until he reached the correct path. About midday, he saw the last carriers of the Catholic group entering the forest. He waited until they all disappeared into the forest. He then went straight to the hut in Tindua. There he met the group of evangelists and luggage bearers who had carried his equipment.
He was so exhausted from the trip that he took the next best tin can, opened it, and it happened to be a tin can of cherries. He ate it in one go and drank the juice, and also gave one to the evangelist. The group took trading goods and lip shells, which they needed to pay headmen to finalize agreements to place evangelists on their land. My father told the carriers to march on while he kept on running and eventually reached the village of Kawa at 5 p.m. in the afternoon.
One important member of the group was Purupa, the translator. He was a student at the mission school in Yalibu. He spoke his mother language, Kewa, and was also fluent in Ibonga, which is the language spoken in Yalibu, and he also spoke Wiru. On my trip to Wiru in the year 2003, the locals showed me the spot where the Catholics had pitched their camp for the night. There was no hurry, because they knew that they had received their permits in advance, and the priests were sure that Reverend Hertle did not have a permit. My father went together with the evangelist Korowa directly to the village of Kao, where the government had planned an airstrip. When they arrived, it seemed like the whole village was there to welcome them. They were given a house for the night that was reserved for the government officials.
Late in the evening, about 8 p.m., the headman of the village came to visit my father. They promised him a portion of land. Next morning at 7 a.m., the Catholic priests too arrived. Both were given a plot of land to build a station. The plot of land where my father was to build a station was close to the creek Tiripini and was therefore called Tiripini. My father hurried to the south, while the priests stayed a day longer and went in the direction of northeast to Apenda.
The trip through the new area took a little more than 1 week. The government had only opened the northern part of the area. This map shows you the overview of the southern highlands and continues showing you the details of the Yalibu and Wiru area. This trip included the villages of Pondi, Karane, and then further south to Poreo. Further villages followed. In each village the group was warmly welcomed by the people. Sometimes the headman would embrace my father according to local tradition. He was greeted as old friends. My father had met these headmen in Yalibu before. Here are the first pictures from that trip, showing my father being greeted by a Wiru in a traditional greeting. In the background, the evangelist Korowa, showing members of the expedition in Poreo. Typical tapa spirit houses in Poreo. Note, the roofing of the spirit house is not made with kunai grass, which is used for normal house roof, but with the more durable and valuable pandanus leaf, also used for rain caps. View of the landscape with tapa spirit houses in the background in Poreo. Students resting after carrying equipment. Wiru men in Poreo wearing their traditional shells and marching happily with the expedition group. This was a very special occasion for them. Expedition members resting. The village Karane showing the long houses. A Wiru man greeting my father.
When my father came back from a trip on the 13th of November, he reported that about 100% of the villages he had visited had accepted the lip shells he had given to the headman. There was only one village that had split. Some had accepted the Catholics, while some had accepted the Lutherans. He was able to make an agreement with the Bible mission, and they therefore occupied the far north. The Catholic priest arrived a day later, and he had a very pale face. My father nearly had pity on him, but now the Catholics were splitting families and bribing people to pull them on their side.
My father had received a good site to place the station, but the area was not yet opened. He needed the approval of the government official before the land could be leased and before he could start erecting buildings. The government officer was due to inspect the site in 3 weeks. In the meantime, he received an answer on his letter to the commissioner, Mr. Fowler, who said that he was not responsible for giving the permits to the Catholics ahead of time. This initiative came from the district headquarters in Mendi. My father explained the situation in a report. It was of great importance in the beginning as to which mission entered the Wiru field at first. The government would perhaps have been glad if the two denominations, the Lutherans and the Roman Catholics, would have been about equally represented in Wiru. Now it was no secret for the government officials in Yalibu that the Lutheran Church had by far the most contacts with the Wiru people. Perhaps it is for this reason that the government, for purely technical reasons as they tried to explain later, gave the weaker missions, that is the Catholic and Bible missions, written permission to enter the Wiru area 1 or 2 days before we received it.
My mother had a different explanation. She said she had the impression that God did not let tricks or treachery to win. God was walking side by side with a small group of faithful and let them arrive earlier than the others. Oh, by the way, do you notice I'm wearing a different shirt than I did before? My mother handed me this shirt before she died and told me that this was the very shirt that my father had worn when he made that memorable trip to the Wiru, together with the evangelist, being the first Lutheran missionary to enter that area. I keep it as a reminder of the very special occasion in the history of the Wirus, because many people saw it when my father arrived in Wiru.
It reminds me of the efforts of the many evangelists, pastors, teachers, medical workers, men and women who worked hard to bring the good message of God's love to the Wirus and to give the people a better future. Above all, it reminds me of the responsible leaders of the Wiru people who led their clans and families through a period of great change and cultural turmoil through those first years. They were not objects of cultural change, but played an active part in a drama of history on its way from a tribal society that cares alone for its clan members and kin to a nation of different tribes with equal rights for each individual. We owe these leaders our highest respect.
The race had been won, but what lay ahead was a tedious marathon of effort and sacrifice of many dedicated Christians to bring new perspective to the lives of the Wiru, a perspective for their future. This is the fourth part of the YouTube series on the beginnings of the Tiripini circuit. If you are interested to find out how the story continues, join us with the next one, the beginnings of the Tiripini station. I will be glad to welcome you.